Prague off the beaten track, Vltava takes you away from the crowds to the city's hidden gems.
Hello and welcome to Prague off the beaten track. I'm Vltava, and in this episode we are staying right in the very heart of Prague, within sight of Charles Bridge, the National Theatre and the castle skyline. Not exactly off the beaten track, you might say, but hear me out, because even here, right in the historic centre, there are places that many visitors walk straight past without realizing they are there. Quiet, green spaces where you can cool down by the water, especially if it's a hot summer day like today. Place where you can sit in the shade and take a break from the cobblestone rush of Old Town. I'm talking now about two of Prague's islands on the Vltava or Moldau River. Střelecký ostrov, which translates as Archer's Island, and Slovanský ostrov, known in English as the Slavonic Island. They are quite small, leafy, and easy to miss unless you really know where to look. But once you do, they offer a whole different perspective on the city. Much calmer, I think, slower and more relaxed. Locals use them as hangouts, picnic spots, or just shortcuts to escape the crowds. So, let's take a closer look, starting with the history and atmosphere of these little urban oases. So I got here by walking down the stone staircase from the Legion Bridge, or Most Legii in Czech, and made my way onto Střelecký ostrov, or Archer's Island. I walked up towards the northern tip, and the view that I can see opens beautifully. In front of me I can see the Charles Bridge, one of the most iconic sites in Prague, in all its, I would say, postcard beauty. On the left bank of the river is the Museum Kampa gallery, and behind the trees lining the riverbank I can just about make out the silhouette of the spires of St. Vitus Cathedral rising above Prague Castle, kind of watching over the city like it has for centuries. I have to mention that the river is full of life. There are paddle boats, very popular and easy to rent for about 350 crowns an hour, and they are zigzagging across the water. It's a sunny summer Sunday, and the Vltava or the Moldau looks almost, I would say, even crowded. A kind of lazy procession of floating couples, families and friends. There's a fresh breeze blowing, which is really refreshing. It's enough to cool you down if you find a spot in the shade, and there's plenty of that here. There are some willows, poplars and chestnut trees that give this island a leafy and tranquil feel. People are stretched out on the lawn. Some are reading, talking, or just soaking it all in. And if I turn slightly to the right-hand side, to the right bank of the river, I can see the golden rooftop of the National Theatre that glints in the sunlight. A perfect reminder that even here, in this peaceful green spot, you are still right in the middle of one of Europe's most beautiful cities. And here I think I should mention that Střelecký ostrov, or the Archer's Island, gets its name from a very different time in Prague's history. As early as in the Middle Ages, this little island was used for archery practice and shooting competitions. In fact, from the 15th century onward, it became designated training ground for the city's militia, or kind of civic guards who were responsible for defending Prague when needed. A shooting range was established here, and the tradition of military and sports shooting continued for centuries. Even into the 19th century, the island served various army units and shooting clubs. So, while today it's all shade trees, restaurants, picnics and paddle boats, it wasn't always this peaceful, I suppose, because back then the sounds of birdsong or the river would have been mixed with the sharp crack of gunfire and the shouts of marksmen honing their skills. Now I walked under the Legion Bridge, or Legionářský most, to the southern part of the island, which is taken up by this complex of buildings, I would say, or sports spots, because although this place was once primarily used for archery and shooting practice only, it gradually became a popular spot for other sports and recreation too, especially in the 19th century. And what I can read on a building here in 1882, it even hosted what is considered the very first mass public gathering of the Sokol movement, a Czech kind of patriotic, even nationalist gymnastics organization. I think I mentioned it elsewhere, but let me just repeat that the word Sokol means falcon in English, and the movement was all about kind of strength and discipline and national pride through physical fitness. And here, right on this island in 1882, the members of the movement had their first Všesokolský sled, kind of mass meeting. And even today, the island retains a bit of that sporting spirit. There's a sporting facility run by the Start Sports Club, a Prague Sports Club. It's normally for members only, but I checked quickly their website. And if you do that, you should be able to rent a place to play, for example, table tennis, and still you can take part in archery lessons too. So it still serves its original purpose. But let me also mention, you don't have to pay anything. There are playgrounds for kids with climbing frames, or prolezačky in Czech, and open green areas where families, friends, I would say even lovers meet and gather, especially on weekends. Of course, there are refreshment stalls lined up too. There's a proper sit-down restaurant in the sports facilities area. There's a great terrace where I'm not walking right now, but I remember once I had a very nice lunch there. So even if you don't go there, you can grab a cold beer, a glass of wine, or grilled sausage in one of the other kind of stalls, and enjoy the view while you are drinking and eating it. Just keep in mind, and let me mention that even though I include this spot in Prague off the beaten track, still we are in the middle of one of Europe's most visited capitals. So yes, I have to admit, the prices remind you of that. It's a bit pricey, of course. So now I'm heading up the stairs again on the Legion Bridge, Most Legii, and I'm walking past the National Theatre to the other Slavonic island, or Žofín as it is called as well. So I crossed over to the other island, Slovanský ostrov, or Slavonic Island. It's really just a short walk from the Střelecký Island, and it's connected to the mainland by a small footbridge near the National Theatre. Many locals still call this Žofín after the grand new Renaissance palace that stands here, and the palace itself was named in the 19th century after Archduchess Sophie, or Žofie in Czech, and she was the mother of Emperor Franz Joseph I. But the island's official name later became Slovanský ostrov, and it was inspired by an important political and cultural event, the Slavic Congress of 1848. That gathering, held during the wave of revolution sweeping across Europe, brought together representatives of various Slavic nations that lived within the Habsburg Empire, and they met here to discuss cooperation, identity, and even independence. And this gathering was held right here on this island, and the name Slavonic Island stuck as a symbol of unity and shared heritage among Slavic peoples. Over the years, Slovanský ostrov has remained a hub of public life in Prague. Already in 1841, before the all-important Slavic meeting, It was the site of a landmark moment in Czech industrial history. The first Czech-made steam locomotive was presented to the public right here. Since then, the Joffin Palace has continued to host major cultural and political events. Even today, it's a prestigious venue for concerts, conferences, and elegant balls. Whether it's a diplomatic reception, a music festival, or a New Year's gala, chances are good that if something important is happening in Prague society, Joffin is still very much in the mix. But to be honest, that's not the reason I came here today, though I thought it was worth mentioning. What really draws me to Slovanský Ostrov is the atmosphere. Much like on Střelecký or Arches Island, there are open lawns where people are stretched out in the grass, enjoying the shade, cooling down by the water. There are a few monuments scattered around. There's, for example, one of Božena Němcová, this great Czech 19th century writer. But there are also quiet corners with benches and once again that beautiful view of the river. Looking across to the left bank, you can see Prague Castle rising in the distance, the towers of St. Vitus Cathedral again visible on the skyline. It's a peaceful spot right in the middle of the city, but it gives you that rare chance to just pause, breathe, and escape the buzz of the streets for a while. So, I'm leaving the island now, heading back towards the city through the small footbridge by the Mánes building. By the way, this striking functionalist structure that you cannot miss houses an art gallery and a restaurant, and like much on these islands, it has its own cultural legacy. In the early 20th century, Mánes was a central meeting point for Czech artists and intellectuals. It was a space where modern art, architecture and new ideas found their voice, so to speak. It's just another reminder of how close you are here to the deep cultural current running through Prague's history. So, that will be all for today. As always, you can find some basic information, a map and some photos on the Prague Off the Beaten Track page at Radio Prague International's website. I'm Vít Pohanka. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, take care and enjoy your summer.
Prague Off the Beaten Track. Vít Pohanka takes you away from the crowds to the city's hidden gems.